Due to the layout of the horizontally opposed Subaru engine, the timing belt stretches across the whole. It's not a timing chain, it is an actual belt, and it needs to be changed out at around 105,000 miles. If the power steering pump is leaking from one of the seals underneath, you'll see a buildup in a pool of red liquid, which is ATF fluid. Subaru uses automatic transmission fluid in their power steering. This little black circle here is the purge valve for the fuel evap. Do you see there's a little arrow? That arrow should point up into the turbo inlet. And I put different lines that go back to the boost solenoid. I also redid the line that goes into the T. There's a pill in this line. In a 2004 STi, that pill must be present to create the correct boost. Check if the year STi or WRX you're buying has to have that pill. Back in there with those little yellow caps on them, those are the fuel injectors. Stock ones are yellow like that. If you have aftermarket ones on there, any change in the fuel system will require a custom dyno tune. So nowadays for your Subaru, there are a lot of popular ways to control the engine management. Computer tuning the car is very important. If the engine is running on the factory ECU tune, a few things need to be in place to make sure that it runs properly. It's up to debate whether or not any modification should be done to the engine without a computer tune. There are some modifications that the factory ECU can adjust for properly without serious engine damage. Here are a few of those. The cob access port can be used to flash special stage tunes that support the modifications. After you've exceeded those modifications, you can get your car tuned on a dyno at a professional shop. When the map is followed correctly, the cob off-the-shelf tune is very safe for the car. What grade fuel used is very important, especially on a performance tune. If your tune says 91 octane and you put 89 in, you could have a detonation issue. Moving underneath, you can check for a common leak, which is the valve cover or rocker cover gaskets. The valve covers sit above the exhaust. If it smokes when the exhaust gets hot, it's a good indicator that the valve covers are leaking. The oil pan shouldn't have any dents or any visible leaks. This STi is garage kept and there's still a fair amount of rust on the frame and the subframe. Take a look at where the major suspension components mount to the frame. Take a 17 and 19 millimeter socket and make sure those bolts and nuts can receive the sockets. Inspect the fuel tank for leaks and check the axle boots or drive shaft boots for rips. Rusting is okay on the rear lateral links. The exhaust should be mounted properly and there should be no rubbing on the axle. The rear differential should have no signs of leaks. It can leak from the axle too. There are 12 millimeter bolts that you can tighten. STi steering wheels can get pretty worn out. Check out Hawkeye STi Guy's video on the aftermarket options and installations. Interiors hold up pretty well, so if it's taken care of, it shouldn't be too mangled. Programming your own rev limiter is awesome. I like to keep it at 6.2. Then it will give you the option to put the sound on. So you'll get that beep along with the light. For the initial startup here, neutral, e-brake of course, with the manual shift. You want to make sure it starts without any hesitation. And listen for anything coming from the back of the car fuel pump related. If there are any issues with the fuel pump, you might hear it within the first 30 seconds of the car starting. If you hear loud whines from the rear when the car is trying to start, that could indicate that the fuel pump is bad, but they are replaceable, as well as the in-tank fuel filter. Too much play in the shifter can be remedied by rubber bushings. The exhaust should only smoke just a little bit on startup, especially in the colder weather. If you have an excess of smoke on startup, it might be an issue. The This is the normal amount of smoke my exhaust produces in the morning. Subaru engines have a distinctive sound when they run. The tapping of the fuel injectors can be heard. Aftermarket fuel injectors will amplify that tapping, as well as different aftermarket parts. Overall, the engine should be fairly quiet. If you hear any loud knocking or tapping, that could be an indication of a ride. It should idle smooth. Let it idle for a little while. An immediate fuel smell could mean you have a rubber line leaking under the intake manifold. It's a common issue on 04, 05, and 06 STi. Quickly check the operation of the DCCD, the driver-controlled center differential. The dial will control how much diff pressure is sent towards the rear, putting more power to the rear or equalizing it 50-50. The e-brake should hold on a hill, but it is adjustable. This center console off, there's an adjustment for the e-brake. The trunk houses the in-tank fuel filter and fuel pump. A spare tire and tools will help. Intercooler water sprayer tank should hold water. The switch activates the pump. There's a headlight aimer to not blind people with your HIDs. The heat, AC, and rear defroster should all work. You can go check to see if the AC compressor is spinning while the AC is on max cool. If the system is low on refrigerant, the AC compressor will not engage. Add refrigerant or try new O-rings for the high and low pressure port. Every gear should work in the car. Should be selectable easily without having to force anything in, especially reverse. If there's a problem going into first gear, intermittently, it's not a serious issue. Going into first gear when it was cold out was a little bit of an issue, so that I wouldn't worry about. Selecting a gear and upshifting, and you get a crunching, and it's hard to select that gear, you could have a synchro ring that's going bad in the transmission. That's a serious issue. That's going to cost you some money. They're going to have to tear apart the transmission. Definitely make sure that nothing pops out while you're driving. Clutch pedal should have a nice weight feel to it. It shouldn't be too stiff, depending on what clutch they have in the car. If they have anything stage 1 or stage 2, you might have a really tough time holding the clutch down. Reverse on the STIs is a detent ring that must be lifted up, and then you can go into reverse. You don't hear any loud sounds when backing up in reverse. Could mean transmission mount. From a standstill, the clutch should engage smoothly. Any type of jerking, that may mean that the clutch is worn out to the screws. The brake pedal should be firm. This has a nice feel to it where the more pressure you provide will be more braking. Remember, you have 4 piston front and 2 piston rear. It shouldn't feel squishy. Of course, there shouldn't be any type of lugging or hesitation in the engine. It should be smooth out of the boost. The steering and power assist should be really accurate, no vibrations in the wheel. You're going to be looking for any type of breakup while you're boosting, and you're going to be listening for any type of strange noise that sounds like a porpoise. If you hear any type of high-pitched whining while you're on the boost, could mean you have a boost leak. Having a boost gauge or your cob access port, once again, is going to be the best way you can tell exactly what boost you're producing. Remember, you want to boost in 3rd gear in an STI. 1st and 2nd will work, but 3rd gear is when you're going to get your full boost. So that's your boost gear. 4,000 RPM, you can hit full throttle without any issue. detonation issues you're going to hear when you're really on it. It should sound like marbles in a tin can. And if you hear that when you're on it, I'd let off and go inspect mechanically if there's some problem. After you're back from the test drive, the fans should come on. It's important that the fans are running. Check for any leaks on the radiator side. You should be able to smell anything if you see smoke. Check near the rocker cover gaskets. You should see or smell burning oil coming from there. You know that you have a leak in the rocker cover gasket. Alright everyone, that's all I could think of for now. If you have any other questions, let me know in the comments. I'd love to hear from everyone. I try and get back to everyone as soon as I can, so let me know, guys and girls.